Hello and welcome, guys. This is Stars Tyrant with another Season 1 Buffy retrospective reaction. This one is Season 1, it's Episode 6, and this one is The Pack. This one is written by Matt Kine and Joe Ryan-Kamea, who apparently were also story editors for Season 1. The Pack is an episode I originally gave 3 out of 5 when I did my last rewatch, was in 2015. It's one of the most deeply silly episodes of the first series, but it's not without some highlights. It was the first of the Xandra-centric episode, Xandra-centric episodes, and so there's a little bit to look into. And it goes into a couple of really quite dark places, which was very interesting again for the show. When I remember, we're only 6 episodes in, and there's a couple of outlandish things, in particular in this episode, which is interesting. So let's just get into it. This is Season 1, Episode 6, The Pack.
Where were you?
I was looking at the fishes.
Was it cool?
It was fishes.
I'm feeling that you're not in the field trip spirit here.
The bullies are a little bit of a cliche here, aren't they? But thankfully the show does spin that on its head in a moment, which is quite refreshing.
Nothing.
Did I ask you to speak? Okay, I guess I did, but I want the truth. Lance?
Yeah, well, I better extract Lance
I'll
before.
handle it. This job doesn't require actual slaying.
And the nobles and
You don't think we should follow?
Kyle and those guys are jerks, but they're all talk.
Okay. Now we've seen it.
Looks cute.
this is the prototype, perhaps, for the werewolf effects.
Come on.
So, like I say, the premise for this episode, very, very silly. And it's a testament to the writers and the overall execution of it, that despite the
Couldn't have that.
very hokey premise, it actually kind of pulls it off. This was... I'd already started, obviously, watching this from the beginning of the series, but this was the episode that... as I recommended it to many people that I was going to school with this week, this was the episode that was on. And it actually went down quite well with the people I'd recommended it to.
Okay, now what?
Took a bath.
Yeah, I often do. I'm actually known for it.
Right. That's enough training for one day.
There's not many Buffy Giles scenes that aren't absolute gold, to be honest. Even in like the darker dramatic ones.
Melanie, Herbert gave Mr. Flutie quite a scare.
One of the arguments you see a lot actually with Xander as a character is that for the most part his behaviour is quite reprehensible, and I know where people are coming from with that, and I tend to give him a free pass a lot because again you have to remember these characters are like 6, 17. That doesn't excuse his behaviour in this episode, obviously, but it's not really him deep down.
Dodgeball.
This teacher's hilarious.
Those of you that may have forgotten, the rules are as follows. You dodge.
And as the teacher will tell us in a minute, this bit's brutal.
Good, this game is brutal.
Thank you.
I love it.
So I won't be needing your math help anymore. Which means I won't have to look at your pasty face again.
You see already, for a show that's so comedic and has, premises as silly as this, and, plays a lot for laughs, it really does put these characters through it. Already at this early stage,
Dogs.
no one wants to see Willow treated like that. And this is just downright harrowing. Yep, we're 6 episodes in, and Xander's already going to eat something alive. There's something quite comical and amusing about them being given a victory parade like this after devouring a helpless pig. It is credit to Nicholas Brendon that he can actually pull off, because as a character who has been played exclusively for laughs pretty much all the way through the first sort of 5 episodes, he does pull off the cool in this episode quite well. And a lot of it is just through, not so much the dialogue here, but like the body language, and he does it well, it must be said. Again, it just shows a confidence from the writers that they, already at this early stage, they can get characters to play against type, and this is the first sort of example of a character being, you know, being taken and turned upside down and playing very much against type. And the show will play with it and experiment with this a lot through the years, and it has to be said in much better ways than this, but as an early idea, this was an interesting one.
It's bad, isn't it?
It's devastating. He's turned into a 16-year-old boy. Of course, you'll have to kill him.
Giles,
I think it has stood out with watching these early few episodes is Buffy's intuition is absolutely on point so far this series.
You're saying that Xander's becoming a hyena?
I don't know. Or been possessed
Super
by
subtle
one?
half laugh
Perhaps
from
Xander
Anthony
also
Head there, brilliant.
I'm
Even I couldn't believe they went here in this episode. It's one thing to have him murdered, but actually, you know, eaten alive by students is it's dark. It's dark. What can I say, guys? It's dark. They eat the principal alive. An act which, must be said, would probably close a school for a good amount of time, but in Sunnydale, we just carry on.
Oh my god, Xander, what happened?
I hit him.
With what?
A desk. He tried to hand it. Felony sexual assault. They didn't hurt him, did they?
They ate him.
Anthony Head must be... The fact that he
principal
keeps
theory.
perfectly straight faced there,
Hit
brilliant.
him up?
The official theory is that wild dogs got into his office somehow.
Didn't?
With which they would shut the school if there was potentially a pack of wild dogs running around, able to eat students.
Giles,
Again,
how do we stop
it's
this? How do you
not
try
even
to
a
possess
nitpick. I
someone?
love the fact that stuff like this happens as it does.
The council
It's
time
part of the
was,
charm of the show.
a bit thin on the-
Maybe he didn't quarantine those hyenas because they were sick.
We should talk to him.
Okay.
Buffy's intuition,
Wait,
again.
somebody's gotta watch Xander.
Your memory always sort of remembers as Giles as being the one who sort of finds these not natural solutions, but you know what I mean, to problems. But Buffy, yeah, like I say, it's really hit me this rewatch more than any others, how just absolutely on point it is. Maybe it's because I'm watching it in a much more analytical sense this time, as opposed to just like sitting and watching it. And at this point, you're thinking, no, the show can't possibly go here. You know, you're almost like begging, please don't go that far for this show.
Don't play with your food. Come on. You know what you want.
After this episode, I'm going to do a counter for every time Giles gets knocked out. That's 3 now.
Buffy, it's a trap!
A second episode in a row where Buffy has dispatched someone who charges at her, and she just, essentially vaults them over her head into their doom. Buffy in a beanie hat.
Billy the Superior's gonna be late.
This is a style she doesn't really rock very often.
Hey, going vegetarian, huh?
Certainly not a hat and t-shirt
I've
combo,
been
anyway.
reading up on my animal possession, and I cannot find anything anywhere about memory loss afterwards.
Did you tell them that?
Your secret dies with me.
And that was The Pack, ladies and gentlemen. An episode I gave 3 out of 5, and I'd probably still give it a 3 out of 5. It's nearly a 4. I would say it's nearly a 4 because it goes into some quite dark places, which I actually admire the episode. But I do find the premise a little bit silly, and it's one of Buffy's at its best when it sort of marriages the supernatural with the sort of the supernatural being a reflection of like human life and teen life and things like that. And I do think this episode is a little bit on the nose with that, although like I said, it does pull it off. But the idea that, teenagers are occasionally 8-pack of rabid animals when they get together and misbehave it's just a little bit too much on the nose for me. But I still think it's entertaining. I do honestly respect where they took, like, how far they wanted to make this quite dark in places. And it's interesting that for an episode as absurd as literally turning, classmates of a school into a pack of human hyenas, in a sense, I actually found this was the least funny episode of them all, because I don't know, I just find the actual the darker bits are actually quite dark, and it almost looks like they tried to play the Principal Flutie death for laughs, but I'd actually sit here going, that's dark for this show. So yeah, I'll leave it as a 3 out of 5. But it's a strong 3 out of 5. It's just not quite as accomplished or as clever as other episodes around it, particularly in the first 2 series and whatnot. But no, it's certainly a good one. 3 out of 5. I'll happily stick with that. So as a little bit of a spoiler, we've got episode Angel, called Angel, coming up next. That's episode 7 of season 1, and it is the first one I gave a 5 out of 5 to. Just as a little thing before we finish, there is also another rating that I reserve, and it's called the 5-star episodes. That's just a personal ranking for me. They go 1 to 5, but then there is the 5-star episodes. The 5-star episodes are the ones that I genuinely believe are not just the greatest episodes of Buffy, but literally reference quality television, the best episodes you will see of anything ever. So all the famous, the most greatest Buffy episodes are all naturally 5 stars. So Angel's not a 5-star episode, but I do think it's up there as the one of the strongest episodes of the first season. It's not quite my favourite. We'll get to my favourite toward the end. But yeah, it's an exciting one to do next. One of the ones you can actually get our teeth into a little bit more, so it'll be fun to do. So until then, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Goodbye. Cheers.